From SBI's Executive Briefing Center in Dallas, Texas, the most watched and listened to content in B2B sales and marketing, it's the SBI Podcast with your host, Matt Shares.
Welcome to the SBI TV show, a weekly show dedicated to helping you make your number. Today we're going to demonstrate how to market and sell like a category leader. Wouldn't everybody like to be a category leader? So, why is this important? If you think about account-based marketing, otherwise known as ABM, it's flipped the marketing funnel on its head. It's enabling today's marketers to proactively target best fit customers, turn them into lasting resources, fueling both new prospects and long-term business. While 90% of B2B marketers value ABM as very or extremely important, only 20% currently have ABM strategies in place. My name is Matt Shares. I'm the CEO of SBI. I'm also your host. Joining me in the studio today is Sangram Vajre, and Sangram is the Chief Evangelist and co-founder of Terminus. Sangram is also one of the 21 B2B influencers to watch as ranked by B2B News Network. So I've got a superstar in the studio today. And I think, Sangram, if memory serves me correctly, some people might know you as the founder of Flip My Funnel and the Flip My Funnel community. So you have more things after your name. So I feel like I'm talking to a PhD. So hey, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. So I guess maybe introduce yourself to the audience, introduce Terminus, and let's ground the audience in who you guys are, what you do, and then we'll get into the show.
Sounds good. So Sangram here. I think most people just go with Sangram because the last name is intimidating in itself. And I did a Google search some time ago when somebody said, what does it mean? It actually means lightning bolt.
Ooh.
So that could be, if I become a rapper, that could be a rapper name.
All right.
So with
nice.
that, with that being said, I'm the co-founder and chief evangelist at Terminus. I'm the founder of Flip My Funnel. 2.5 years ago, when we were starting the company, 3 years ago when we were starting the company, we realized this challenge that less than 1% of the leads are turning to customers. And that's a research that was put forth by Forrester.
Yep.
And we just grabbed that, right? Because that is such a crazy stat. That literally means if you're talking to a CFO or a CEO, that 99% of what marketing and sales are working on is not driving revenue. And you wonder why sales and marketing jobs are changing so fast, right? So we realized that this is a real problem. And one of the things that we looked at is that if you're starting a company, and going back to the idea of category leadership, we need to think about community first, because we need to get a bigger community behind the idea.
Okay.
We realized that we can get more people to believe and agree on a problem, because the solution may be so many different ways to look at it, but the problem everybody can agree on this. So less than 1% of the leads turning to customer became the reason why Terminus got founded, and really kind of got all of our stuff really focused on how do we help B2B marketers do account-based marketing at scale. And that's what we focus on.
So, and then let's talk about your background. So prior to Terminus and having the courage, as you did, to go out and chase a mission and chase a problem, and you and I were fortunate to catch up and spend some time together yesterday. Talk a little bit about your run prior to Terminus, and in my opinion, what makes you highly credible in this topic, because you come from the field of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a marketer through and through for the last 10 years or so. And just before Terminus, I ran marketing at Pardot. And we went through the acquisition of ExactTarget. And then 6 months later, we went through the acquisition of Salesforce. So all of a sudden, I was working in a 100+ people startup company running marketing to one of the most iconic brands in the B2B SaaS industry, running marketing. Yeah. And I still remember that the person that I was reporting to for some amount of time, he said, hey, when you got acquired by ExactTarget, think 10x. I'm like, yeah, I can think 10x, no big deal. And 6 months later, we got acquired by Salesforce. He came and said, hey, remember the 10x conversation? He said, forget that. Start thinking 100x. And to me, I understand what scale really meant when I was at Pardot and then at Salesforce, and it was an amazing experience.
Those are some great places to be, and I know that's allowed your experience to be hardened into the solution that you and your partners have put into Terminus. And I'm always interested, how did you guys first, and how did you first hear about SBI?
Oh, I feel really good because I'm on your weekly email that comes through, and that's really interesting. I've started to listen to a lot of the podcasts on iTunes. That's been really cool. And then we also got, I think this was a printed magazine that you guys started what sounds like a year ago. So I got one of those copies. I'm like, wow, this is old school done in a new school way. So I really love that. So it's still there on my desk in the office. So it's pretty cool.
So those of you that are listening and watching, the reason I asked Sangram that question with a little bit of positive bias, obviously, on my firm, I gotta lead with that, is marketing is the land of 1,000 seeds. You always don't know what's going to work. So if you think about your different modes and your different channels, and Sangram and I are going to speak about that, that's a real use case on how somebody that's in the same ecosystem that I'm in, we probably know 500 of the same people, and there was ways for our companies to have synergy, yet we didn't know enough about each other. So for those of you that are watching, don't miss any of the new SBI TV shows. They're released about 2 to 3 each week. iPhone users should download the SBI app to have access and notifications, and that makes your commute, your travel, your workout routine that much easier. So search for Sales Benchmark Index in the App Store and download the app to your iPhone. All right, so today's show, Sangram's going to outline essential ABM strategies and tactics. So if you think about this, how do you radically accelerate your pipeline, drive more revenue by successfully building, executing, measuring your own account-based campaigns? So too far, right? ABM is executed only as a targeted banner. So I guess, Sangram, let's talk a little bit about that concept of, ABM executed against banner accounts, like sort of ground the audience in what you believe it to be, how Terminus is disrupting, because you guys are on an unbelievable run.
Thank you.
Unbelievable run. That many watching want to be on a run like you're on. So let's start there.
So I was thinking, we were talking about this yesterday. And I'm glad you laughed at this and you chuckled. And I know you were not laughing at me, you were laughing with me on that, which was when I said, hey, look, I have never heard any sales organization ever hire a lead executive. They've always hired an account executive.
Totally.
So, and we laughed about that because, ABM is not a fad, it's a reality. Sales team has always been focused on account-based selling.
Yeah.
And marketers have been giving leads to them for the last, 10, 15 years, or from beginning of time. So the way I think about account-based marketing is marketers and sales working together as one team and saying, here are the list of accounts that we believe that are the best fit accounts we want to go after. That is the number one thing they have to do. If they don't have that, it doesn't really matter how amazing your content is, or what amazing your strategies are. It really doesn't matter.
So I'm pausing there and we'll keep going. So takeaway number one, for those of you that are listening, you think about Sangram's experience of being at places like Salesforce, being at places like Pardot, and then obviously now at Terminus. If you don't do segmentation right, and you don't understand your ideal customer profile, you don't understand propensity to buy, potential to spend, and cost to acquire, everything else after that's going to break down. So the big sweeping assumption that Sangram and I are making as we're walking through this is the clarity of your segmentation, so then you can action your universe with all the great strategies that they have.
Yep.
So let's assume that's done well.
Great.
Now what?
The second part, I think this is where marketing automation, everybody who does marketing automation got it wrong. And I'm part of it. I'm the reason I've created some of this problem, I believe, so I take responsibility for it, is we pretty much made sure that marketers are sending emails every day, or the salespeople are also doing calls and emails every single day. We have completely forgotten that there are 5, 7, if not 10, 12 people part of the decision-making process. So if somebody downloaded an ebook, we're gonna harass them to finally get to be on the phone and try to close that deal. And the reality is that no, they might be one of the people who are just carrying over that information to someone who needs to make a decision. So what account-based marketing, why it is so important to think about is, if any account that you have identified as part of your target list, if you do not have 3 or 4 or 5 people in that account as part of your communication plan, then you don't have the propensity to sell your product. And that's something very hard for us to realize. We always looked at, we just got a lead. Well, that lead may be someone who's an intern who's trying to download every single ebook on your website. Doesn't mean they're the right people.
Sangram, how do you advise people? I mean, and it's a great point. The takeaway for me when I hear you say that, and for the audience, should be, if I do sell, like most now, into a 5 to 7 person decision-making matrix, because the days when I first started selling back in the 90s of the single economic buyer, who can say yes when everybody else says no, or vice versa, those days are gone.
Yep.
It's all consensus.
Right.
CEOs, and that's who I spend my life talking to,
Right.
they're not going to go ahead with a project in the world of consulting unless the CFO and the CMO and the head of sales and the head of products say, yeah, we probably should go ahead and do that. So is your message then to the audience, you got to know your personas, you got to know your segmentation. But as you look at the piece of content you're sending through whatever channel, if you're not doing that multi-mode, multi-channel to reach each of the personas in whatever channel that whatever watering hole per se, don't even bother.
You made me think about this. I'm so glad you asked that question. Here is something that we have realized, and a lot of our customers do that. We're saying, all right, ABM, let's do one-to-one, right? And when we say one-to-one, they're using the same exact message sometimes to the entire buyer, like CEO, CFO. And what we're realizing is that doesn't work. Because the CFO cares about completely different things than a CEO and a CMO or a CPO. So what we are realizing in account-based marketing is that, well, first of all, if you have the list of accounts and if you know that you have multiple people in that organization, now you need to create messages that resonate with that exact buyer persona. So, and that is a big, and that requires work. That requires planning. That requires you to really take the time to create, what do I want to say here to the CFO? And through the technology that we have today, and part of it is just Terminus, but there are multiple technologies out there, you can actually make sure that your message, the right message is going in front of the right person in the same company. So CFO can see a completely different message that's about ROI, whereas marketer can probably see a message that's more about efficiency, and the CEO can look at that, oh, they're part of the Gartner Magic Quadrant, so this is a good thing. So all those things really, really matter.
Is coverage... So, and my question was around the blind spot. So, in your opinion, is the biggest blind spot the CMO has relative to account-based marketing the fact that they don't have contextual persona coverage? I've got an account.
Right.
I've got a buying decision team with 7 people. I'm going single message, single person. So I'm penetrating 1/7 or 2/7 of the buying decision team instead of in an orchestrated fashion saying, geez, I want to sell the Terminus. And Sangram has 2 partners and it's probably a 3-person buying decision team. If I'm going to go after Terminus, I'm either going to message all 3 or I'm not going to message them at all.
I think you hit it.
That's your view on the world.
Absolutely. I think the part that people are really need to get their minds around when it comes to account-based marketing, and when you talk about one team, is everybody has a bias towards that one person who needs to make a decision, right? Like say, hey, CMO, we are going to believe and trust in you that you're going to make the right decision if the CEO is the buying process. But all of them, because of the social media and because of all the different commentary that happens all over the place, they know all the different things that are happening. So when the question comes up, hey, why your company versus some other company? And if the CFO and CEO have never heard about the company that the marketer is bringing to the conversation, they're going to miss out. I think you said it right. 100%. I think you're really stacking all the different odds against you when you're not getting all the people in that target account aware of your brand. And that's where I feel like this is really awareness in that company that really needs to happen.
So my last question in this segment is, you talked about marketing and sales working together to identify best fit customers. And you shared a couple of great learnings and insights with me last night. Talk a little bit about what good looks like, because I know you guys eat your own dog food.
We call it champagne.
I'm sorry, you drink your own champagne, highly refined. That's right. But in drinking your own champagne, talk a little bit about marketing and sales around best fit customer, what that cadence looks like, and how the audience could think about operationalizing that.
I think so. We are very fortunate that both the leaders that we have, Todd McCormick, who's our Chief Revenue Officer, and Peter Herbert, who's our CMO now, they both are incredibly amazing operational people. So one of the things we did, and I shared this with you, and I'm happy to share this because we're a very transparent company, for the first 1.5 years, we were not doing account-based marketing. We're preaching, we're talking about it, but we're not doing it the best way possible. And we had to make a decision that we had to transform. If you're going to sell this thing, then we need to believe in it. And in order to believe in it, we have to do it. So we had to transform, which meant that from a sales perspective, instead of them having thousands of accounts, we had to whittle it down to 100 accounts. So now every single salesperson on the Terminus sales team has 100, 110 accounts, and that's it. What that did was the salespeople had to be creative with all the different communication they have to do with their target accounts. And it also pushed the marketing team to work with them every single day. So the typical cadence is something like this. Every Friday, the sales and marketing team gets together, and we call it this marketing meeting. So it's phenomenal.
Marketing.
And the conversation is, all right, what penetration do we have in each tiered accounts? Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. And within that, we'll come up with a priority list of how many accounts do the sales team need to focus on. So let's say they have 100 accounts. We found out 20 accounts. They're showing fit. They're showing intent. Now we need to start engaging with them. So the next week is all about engagement, that sales and marketing going to work together. That might mean banner ads, direct mail, happy hour dinners, a very small webinar of 10 people. All those things really is about sales and marketing working together and figuring out how are we going to create that engagement in those tiered accounts that matter most.
What I took away from that answer, and audience, what you should take away from what Sangram just talked about is this concept of engagement, right? And as he educated me yesterday, it's one thing to say, I've got somebody I know who is a perfect prospect for us. It's another thing to have engagement over a period of time with a series of decision makers across that. And they're doing two things. They're engaging with the brand, but then they're also unpacking the problem. And you're educating them on the problem.
Absolutely.
And I loved the clarity that you have relative to what sales and marketing do. It's like you guys are making a bet. You're going all in on that. So instead of doing a bunch of things you're doing one thing really well. So we're going to take a quick break. And then we're going to transition here. So takeaway as Sangram and I get ready to go to the second segment. Number one is, if you don't have segmentation done, no mas. So assuming you've got that done and you've got it done in a dynamic way where you're continuing to refresh your segmentation and understand that, you've got to make sure that the mindset around engagement and around persona coverage. How many personas are typically involved in your decision, and are you covering all of them? And then the third element is smarketing. That's my favorite one, by the way, right? Which is the sales and marketing interlock. So now in this second segment, Sangram and I are going to discuss how you make the transition. So if you're sitting there going, I'm not doing this, and I want to be doing it, what do I do, right? Whether you're a CMO and you want to make the transition, you're a CMO and you're not doing it as well as you want to, or you're a CRO or a CEO watching this going, I want my CMO to do this. So, Sangram, you are an expert on this. How do I as a CMO go from not doing it to doing it at scale?
One thing we realized is every single organization, the CEO, the board, they have this blueprint of how marketing and sales should operate. As a matter of fact, as I started the company, I realized there's this number called sales and marketing efficiency. And everybody's watching that like a hawk. And that number really matters. So I think it really matters for a marketer to understand that is really important for business to be a healthy business. So one of the ways we have, and Peter, who's a CMO right now, came up with this very clear definition of how do we operationalize that so everybody feels comfortable. Because that's the most important thing. Everybody needs to buy into this process. And he came up with this formula called fit, intent, and engagement that allows people to think about, okay, I can wrap my brain around it. So anybody who wants to jump into doing ABM, think about fit, meaning you have to have the right companies that you want to go after. You have to have both sales and marketing 1,000% agreed on it. There shouldn't be a shadow of doubt that you are wondering, well, maybe I missed some. No. You need to know which companies you want to go after. And there are tools that can help you do that. The second part, and this is the exciting part, the intent, which means I'm not going to spend all of my sales team time on any company that are even fit. Because if they are fit, but if they have shown no intent, I'm not going to spend their time on it. I want to find the companies that are showing intent, which means if they're searching on a similar product, similar keywords, all those things are really important. So it allows you to, really importantly, allows you to see which accounts to prioritize. And that I've seen is one of the most important things you can do for a salesperson. Help them prioritize their accounts. And then you get into the engagement. Now this is the fun part, where sales and marketing get to work together and say, you know what? 10 of these accounts that you're working on, all of them are based in Boston. Let's do something there. Or let's do a very targeted ad campaign with them through LinkedIn or Terminus ads. Whatever that might mean, it really is all about alignment there. But this idea of operationalizing has really been broken down into these simple pieces of fit, intent, and engagement.
That is very, very powerful. So those that can make that transition and say, okay, I'm doing fit okay, I'm stuck a little bit in intent, I'm not doing engagement well, but now I've got the blueprint from Sangram. How do I think about the roles and skills of the people on my team that are going to pull off that? If you sort of think about traditional marketers to marketing of 2019, right?
Yeah.
Going where the puck is going to be, right? Talk a little bit about that.
It's changing quite a bit. We talked about it yesterday. I think one of the most important role, if you're doing account-based marketing, is the role of the enabler. We talked about sales enablement, revenue enablement, whatever you name that. It's really, really crucial. The reason I say that is because we do not have a lead number. Marketing team does not have a lead number in our company. So what are they doing? Like, how do we have accountability on the marketing team if they don't have a lead number? Just like sales team has a number on their back, marketing got a number on their back. How do we do that? The way we have come across is we're going to have an enabler sitting in the sales team every single day. They're going to be reporting to marketing, but their job is to work on this engagement thing. They're doing every single day, they're figuring out how do I engage with every one of these accounts that my sales team is focused on. And their bonuses, everything is dependent on the fact that we are going to be able to penetrate in these accounts that the sales and marketing is aligned.
So those of you that are watching and listening, and the SBI's opinion on the world relative to enablement, which Sangram shares with me, so I feel good about that, is the concept of sales enablement is gone. You replace sales enablement with revenue enablement. Why? If you think about organizations from marketing to your business development, new logo pursuit team, to some form of account management penetration to customer success, to then saves, reactivations, dormant accounts. That's revenue across the revenue supply chain. It's no longer good enough just to enable a salesperson. You've got to enable everybody. So this concept of revenue enablement, and as Sangram talks about, who is the chief enabler on your team? And it's funny, as he and I were debating this concept, it really makes you think about it. And if everybody owns something, nobody owns something. So then knowing that, and knowing that in today's day and age, Sangram, content and powerful content is the keys across multiple modes to enablement. How do people get started? So let's go back to 101 for people that are watching this going, oh man, I don't have that. Oh shit, what am I going to do? What do I need to do to kind of think through this content maze?
You know, I think there has been days, and there are a lot of companies still do that. They have checklist, which is we need to write 3 blogs a week. We need to have 1 email that we need to send to everybody every single day. We need to do 1 webinar every month. We need to launch 2 ebooks every month. And that is their marketing program. And I think that has to stop. That's what companies are doing and thinking that's marketing. That has to fundamentally change. The reason is nobody gives a shit about that. It really does, right? Nobody's waiting for your email.
Amen, man.
Right? Nobody really gives a shit. So what they really care about is their problem, which requires you as a company to think about their problem. What are your customers and future customers' problems? And that means the message that you're going to send needs to have some depth to it. So when we think about sending emails and nurturing, we think about, okay, who are these people? Oh, they're in financial services, or if they're in healthcare, they're in technology. We're trying to create content for them in that spirit. And it's hard. It takes time. But as I think this is a famous quote from Abraham Lincoln, right? If I give me an axe and you want me to chop a tree down, I will sharpen it for 4 hours and then use the next 2 hours to chop it down. It's exactly that. ABM is exactly that. You need to take the time to plan, take the time to get on a whiteboard, draw some things, make sure that you understand what you're doing, and then get on it. And it's going to take more time. But here's the thing that I learned. It's not going to cost you more money. Because you're no longer going after every single person in the world. You're going to spend the most time on the right accounts. And what that does is that your customer and your future customers feel like you care. And that matters a lot when you think about it.
So as we wrap up this segment, the takeaway you should get from what Sangram talked about is showing people that you care. The concept of the emotional narrative of your buyers. It's one thing to think about the outcomes that your product or service provides, right? It's another thing to think about how people are feeling. And whenever people are thinking about the pain of change versus the pain of same and engaging in a conversation, if you're not thinking about the emotional narrative and understanding the words and knowing them at that level of clarity, you're going to miss out, to Sangram's point. So, as we move into this third and final segment, all right, which of a power-packed 25 minutes with Chief Evangelist and co-founder of Terminus, Sangram, this is going to be more of a lightning round that we talk about here. And I want to get your thoughts on some hot topics that are sort of sweeping what I call B2B revenue right now. So the first one is the marketing leader is the champion of customer experience, right? I believe we're in the top of the first inning relative to customer experience and what that means in B2B organizations. Lots of content being written, but people are having a hard time understanding what that means and what's the CMO's role as a champion of customer experience. So talk about that from your perspective.
I think marketers are put in a box and they need to jump out of the box. They need to really, really do that, like literally scream out and get out, right? And if you're in your car right now and listening to this scream, right? Like, I think you need to get that thing out. I think they've been put in a box of demand generation. They said that, hey, you need to do this thing. And the reality is the color of the money is still green. Doesn't really matter if you're working on demand generation or pipeline or upserve, which is upsell, cross-sell, I call it upserve. Like it really doesn't matter. So now with account-based marketing, I feel people have the ability to go back to their CFO and CEO and say, you know what, our conversion rate from a pipeline opportunity to something is different. Like it's low. It's like 10%. Let me focus on that. And because you know the accounts, it really matters. I bring it back to account-based marketing not just because I'm excited about it, but also I believe marketers have so much intelligence now and data points on customers and future customers that they can create an amazing experience. But the challenge is marketers are put in a box, or they self-select and put themselves in a box. So my big thought on that one is really jump out of that box. You know, you no longer need to be subscribing to a box. You need to say, my job is to drive revenue for the company.
All right, the CMO's journey to becoming CEO, right? There's not very many CMOs that can make that move. CX is coming to the forefront. We all know that B2C behaviors and what we see in B2C creep its way into B2B 18 to 36 months later. What's your opinion on the CMOs that are watching and listening who maybe don't want to go found a company like you did? How do they become the CEO?
Well, I mean, first you have to ask yourself if you really want the job or not. You know, I think as we shared, right? You know, Eric Spett, who's the CEO of Terminus, my partner, amazing guy. He's an operator. He really loves everything related to building a business, and it's amazing. I mean, I cannot do what he does. Like, I have to be very honest. Like, he is an exceptional CEO, and the reason I say that is because he cares deeply about the numbers, the financials of the companies, the health of the business. He cares deeply about the way those numbers work and what makes a healthy business and not. He's into it every single day, and he cares deeply about every single person in the company. So he's spending like 20 interviews to hire a person, 30 interviews or 50 times to go and talk to a VC to raise money. The challenges that a CEO faces are very different, and people don't give enough credit to CEO. Now, people
amen, bro.
I really don't think it's a thankless job, right? Because marketers get to use the microphone and talk about stuff, right? So my job is easy in many ways. It's the easiest job in the world because I get to talk about my heart out, and then I need to get on a flight and go. But if you are an operator, if you believe in if you have a very good operational mindset, then you need to think about being a CEO. I think that makes a lot of sense. Or hire somebody that will be your right hand for that operation, because operation is the core of being a really, really good CEO. Beyond the vision, of course you got to have vision. Of course you have to have those things. But in some ways you can surround yourself with some of those. But if you're not in the business every single day, it's really, really hard to run a company and grow at the scale that we're growing. If I was a CEO right now, we may not be growing as fast, quite honestly.
Very good. Last question. I'm not sure if there's a better poster boy relative to brand building and being an evangelist and being out front, right? And from the company that you keep to just the size and scale of your reach. Advice to those that want to follow suit.
Don't copy. Like, don't copy anybody. Like, it really doesn't matter. I think everyone has their gifts and their skills. I realized, 2 years ago that one of my greatest gifts is to inspire. And that's something that I've really started to think about a lot more. My job is that I look at certain things and I really care about certain problem, and those are the only things I talk about. I don't talk about everything.
Yep.
I talk about only a few select things that I really, really deeply care about.
Yeah.
And the day those things don't matter, I'll move on. It won't matter. So for me, it's about that. But a lot of people, I think, fall into this idea of, I want to build a brand. That means, okay, let me look at Gary Vaynerchuk. Let me look at, what Sangram is doing with videos on LinkedIn. It doesn't really matter. What matters is be yourself, because people can see through that.
Yep.
And if they can see your heart and you're putting passion in it, then it won't feel like work.
Yep.
So a lot of what I do, what might seem daunting for a lot of people, it is because I don't even feel like work, because I feel like I'm just living my life.
So what I believe, and our purpose at SBI is to drive people to reach their full potential.
Yeah.
Both our clients and our employees. Because we have this really unique platform as a consulting firm where you get this amazing purview of what folks are doing.
Yeah.
And what I love about your answer and why I'm such a fan of yours is you have such clarity on your personal mission, right? You're not a spectator in your own life right now, right?
Yeah.
You're driving what happens. You're making choices. You're not getting driven. So, first off, can't thank you enough for coming in.
No worries. I'll give a quote on that one that I've recently heard, which is, nobody owes you anything.
Yeah.
Nobody. So we got to live our life the way, it's up to us to kind of lead it.
Yeah. Well, can't thank Sangram enough for coming in. Your contributions to our community have been great. Continued success at Terminus to you and your partners, and for those that are watching and listening, these guys have an unbelievable platform, and you can see the insight that they can bring. So if you're stuck and you're wrestling with all things ABM oriented, pretty easy phone call to make to the guy to my left. So appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and to our audience, you have a choice, as you always do, on where you put your eyes and your ears. And myself and the rest of the SBI family appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for your continued support, and that's it for today. So as always, until next time, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on the studio, SBI's Executive Briefing Center, our team, or to schedule a workshop, please visit salesbenchmarkindex.com.